Hello and welcome to this exploring session, and today we are looking at a comedy concerning three laws of nature, Moses and Christ, corrupted by the Sodomites, Pharisees and Papists, compiled by John Bale, anno 1538. By that title, we get a number of clues as to what we're about to read. Let us say that John Bale was not someone of the school of the ecumenical matter when it came to the differences in religious opinion, and he held some extreme views, and we should point out that we do not necessarily attest to any of the views expressed in the play that we are about to read. It's written say it's around 1538, along with a whole string of other plays, some that survive and some don't, as John Bale is very, very busy writing drama, which could be considered religious propaganda, but also political propaganda. And as the title notes, corrupted by the Sodomites, there is an important historical moment that comes prior to this play being written, 4 years before this, into common law. The crime of sodomy is actually created. Prior to that, it's something not within the English common law. It might be in ecclesiastical law, and it's one of these bits of law that turns up part of anti-religious political maneuvering that's going on as the Reformation starts heating up, because one of the accusations that many clergy have is that they might be indulging in various sexual acts with various different peoples. So this is a political hot potato amongst all sorts of other political events going on at the time, and that's one of the reasons, as well as perhaps just John Bale just being John Bale, that this turns up as a major theme in the play that we're about to read. And that's about as much of a trigger warning as I think I can give in this particular instance. To work through the first half or so of this play, we have a crack team of readers who are going to be reading various parts across the 2-day session. We have a little breather in the middle. We have a day off to recover from the intensity of the first half of the play. So reading Infidelitas, and probably tomorrow Fides Christiania is...
I am Greg, and I live in Berkshire.
And reading the parts of Naturae, Lex, Avaricia, and Pseudo Doctrina is...
Francis Cox, actor living in Amsterdam.
And the voice of God, Deus Pater, today is...
Hello, I'm Annaliese Connolly, and I'm in Sheffield.
And reading the parts of Moseh, Lex, Idolatria, and Hypocrisis is... muted at the moment.
Liza Graham, actor, singer, and Renaissance text coach, 2 actors in London.
And the voice of almost God, John Bale himself, will be...
I am Steve Longstaffe. I'm a scholar of early modern drama based in Lancaster in the UK.
And reading the parts of Christy, Lex, Ambitio, and something familiar, something peculiar, something for everyone, Sodomismus tonight is...
I'm Alex Scott Fairley, and I'm an actor from the Highlands of Scotland.
Okay, and that is the team. I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I hope to throw in additional gobbets as we go, as we explore this text. And like many plays by John Bale, the script actually explicitly states that the person who does the prologue, and usually the epilogue as well, is in fact John Bale himself. So if you wonder what the point of the message of this play is, the appearance of John Bale with his eyes and his beard will perhaps give you a clue as to what is about to come. So enter Baleus Prolocutor.
Sorry. In each commonwealth most high preeminence is due unto laws, for such commodity as is had by them. For, as Cicero giveth sentence, whereas is no law, can no good order be in nature, in people, in house, nor yet in city. The body is above or underneath a law. Who could rule the world were it not under awe? Like as Chrysippus Clarkly doth define, law is a teacher of matters necessary, a knowledge of things both natural and divine, persuading all truth, dissuading all injury. A gift of the Lord, devoid of all opprobry, a wholesome doctrine of men discreet and wise, a grace from above, and a very heavenly practice. Our heavenly maker, man's living to direct the laws of nature, of bondage, and of grace, sent into this world with viciousness infect, in all righteousness to walk in space. But infidelity so worketh in every place that under the heavens no thing is pure and clean. So much the people to his perverse ways lean. The law of nature his filthy disposition corrupteth with idols and stinking sodometry. The law of Moses with avarice and ambition he also polluteth, and ever continually Christ's law he defileth with cursed hypocrisy, and with false doctrine, as will appear in presence to the edifying of the Christian audience. Of infidelity, God will himself revenge with plagues of water, wildfire, and of sword. And of his people, due homage he will challenge, ever to be known for their God and good Lord. After that he hath those laws again restored to their first beauty, committing them to faith. He is now in place. Mark therefore what he saith.
And thus John Bale exits from the stage. We're going to go right into the first act. Enter Deus Pater, natural law, Moses' law, and Christ's law.
I am Deus Pater, a substance invisible, all one with the Son and Holy Ghost in essence. To angel and man I am incomprehensible, a strength infinite, a righteousness, a prudence, a mercy, a goodness, a truth, a life, a sapience. In heaven and in earth we are made all to our glory, man ever having in a special memory. Man, I say again, which is our own elect, our chosen creature and servant over all, above the others peculiarly select, to do us homage and on our name to call, acknowledging us for his author principle. Endued him we have with gifts of special grace, and laws will we send to govern him in place. Forth ye 3 laws for guidance of mankind, who most entirely in heart we love and favour, and teach him to walk according to our mind. In cleanness of life and in gentle behaviour, deeply instruct him our mysteries to savour, by the works of faith all vices to seclude, and preserve in him our godly similitude.
Of duty we ought always to be obeisant to your commandment, for just it is and pleasant.
Your precepts are true and of perpetual strength, on justice grounded as will appear at length.
Proudness ye abhor with like inconvenience, all they are cursed which go from your commandments.
Our laws are all one, though you do 3 appear, likewise as our will is all one in effect. But because that man in himself is not clear, to time and person as now we have respect, and as 3 teachers to him we you direct, though ye be but one in token that we are 3, distinct in person and one in the deity.
We consider that, for as concerning man, for several times much to be respected, of innocency first, of his transgression then the long season wherein he was afflicted, finally the time wherein he was redeemed. Of pleasure is the first, the second of exile, the third doth punish, the fourth doth reconcile.
When angel was made this law he had by and by to serve you his lord, and with laws to prosecute. This law was given man in time of innocency, in no wise to eat of the forbidden fruit. These 2 laws broken, both they were destitute of their first freedom, to their most high decay, till your only Son did man's whole ransom pay.
When angel in heaven and man in paradise those laws had broken, the law of wicked Satan impugned your laws by craft and subtle practice. Where you said, "Eat not," he said unto the woman, "Eat, ye cannot die, as gods ye shall be then." By this, first of all, your laws man proved true, and Satan's law false, which he now daily rue.
Let him then beware how he our laws neglect. Only to angel and man we gave liberty, and they only fell, becoming a froward sect. Not by our motion, but their own vanity. For that we gave them to their felicity. Abuse they have to their perpetual evil. Man is now mortal, and angel become a devil. Lose man we will not, though he from us doth fall. Our love towards him will be much better than so. Thou, law of nature, teach thou him first of all, his Lord God to know, and that is right to do. Charge and enforce him in the ways of us too. Thou, law of Moses, and Christ's law finally, raise him and save him to our perpetual glory.
For a time of exile, then, I must be his teacher.
Ye, for 3 ages, both guide and governor, from Adam to Noah, from Noah to Abraham, and then to Moses, which is the son of Amram.
Where must I remain for the time I shall be here?
In the heart of man, his conscience for to steer, the righteous living and to a just belief, in token whereof this heart to thee I give. Hic pro sui sino cor ministrat. Thou shalt want no grace to comfort him withal, if he to the faith of my first promise fall.
Then my course is next for time of his punishment.
For 3 ages more, to thee must he consent, from Moses to David, and thence to the Jews' exile, and so forth to Christ, which will man reconcile.
Where shall I, sweet Lord, for that same season dwell?
With such hard rulers as will the people compel, our minds to fulfill without vain gauds or fables. For a sign of this, hold these same stony tables.
And here he shows him, gives him stone tables for a sign.
All they that observe our laws inviolably, they shall everywhere prosper, increase, and multiply.
Then I perceive well, my course is last of all.
What though it be so, yet art thou principal. O'er all the world thy beams shalt thou extend, and still continue till the world be at an end.
Where shall I, Father, for that same time persevere?
With the faithful sort must thou continue ever. Thou shalt my people return from far exile, and forevermore to my grace reconcile. Take this precious book for a token evident, a seal of my covenant and a living testament.
And the sign for Christ is the New Testament itself.
They that believe it shall live for evermore, and they that do not will rue their folly sore. Blessed shall he be that you my laws will keep, in city and field, whether he do work or sleep. His wife shall increase, his land shall fructify, and of his enemies he shall have victory. The sky will give rain when seasonable time shall be, the work of his hands shall have prosperity. Cursed shall they be, will not our laws fulfill, without and within, at market and at mill. Of corn and cattle they shall have none increase, within their own house shall sorrows never cease. Nor shall they be without bile, botch, or blame. The pestilence and pox will work them deadly pain. Show this unto man, and bid him take good heed of our righteousness to stand always in dread. We visit the sin and the great abomination of the wicked sort to 3rd and 4th generation. Thou, law of nature, instruct him first of all. Thou, law of Moses, correct him for his fall. And thou, law of Christ, give him a godly mind, raise him unto grace, and save him from the fiend. Our heavenly blessing be with you, every one.
All praise
and glory to your majesty alone.
Alone.
Here still to tarry, I think it be your mind.
My office, ye know, is to instruct mankind.
Then God be with you. We leave you here behind.
And indeed they do. Everybody goes except for natural law, which is something we'll look at in the next act. So it's it's a very much didactic opening. It's setting out its stall. I apologise for not being quick enough on realising, oh bugger, there's a Latin stage direction that I hadn't looked ahead on, and so apologies on that. So three signifiers are handed out during the scene. I'm wondering, in terms of timing, if we're at 38, have we just had the mandated Great Bible produced around about then, as a New Testament going around to all the in English going to churches? Might be a year or so away. I mean, there are English Bibles around now, but I think it's the Great Bible gets produced about now. So that's what Christ gets. Moses obviously gets his stone tablets, and natural law gets a heart. Gets a beautiful heart. There we go. Liza does it better than I. I was doing mine upside down.
It's pity she's a whore moment, is it? It's not his pity she's a whore moment, is it?
In what way? So
where you get a heart kebab in the last act.
No, I think not. Oh yeah, I've forgotten that. I should know that. We've been working on that play. Anyway, so yes, it's Bale sets the tone. He really does hit those things. Filthy disposition.
Yeah.
Stinking. Polluteth. He's not pulling his punches there, is he?
Yeah, this is not going to be one of those subtle plays where you don't really know what the author thinks until the big reveal. Like,
No.
He's kind of upfront about it.
Yeah.
It sort of reminded me, it's not a text I know well, but The Anatomy of Melancholy. There are some particularly disgusting descriptions of what happens to sodomites in that, aren't there? I remember reading bits of it at university and almost being engrossed in it because of how much delight it took in describing these things. And there's something about this. The beginning seems very ritualistic, much more so than anything else we've had. And that sort of, the language, I'm wondering where this is going and quite how much we're going to see. It's sort of a Mary Whitehouse thing, isn't it? It's sort of almost like relishing in it at the same time as censoring.
Yeah, there's definitely an immediacy to this prologue in the way that some of the other morality plays we've looked at just don't actually. They may be lecturing from distance, but you do get the impression he's really going for the audience, isn't he? I don't know if Stephen, you felt that way, or maybe it was perfectly reasonable from your point of view.
Yeah. I quite like Sodomitry, though. It sounds like national curriculum, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like Liza's put in the chat, it's a new favourite branch of mathematics.
It's like sort of 16th century TED talk, isn't it? So, you imagine him pacing around the stage doing that stupid accordion gesture that they all have.
I'm just imagining the diagrams.
Yeah. PowerPoint presentation, 3 laws merging.
Annaliese.
I suppose he's doing that tightrope thing that playwrights have to do, where he's going to be presenting this moral story, this moral message, but it's theatre, and so he's got to titillate a bit, hasn't he, with what might be coming up next, because he wants people to stay engaged, otherwise they're going to feel like, oh, not him again, not more ranting and
Well, we're being kind of distanced from the action, aren't we? Because we know what's going to happen. That's the whole point, is that we sort of stand back and look at it.
Yeah, Bale might have given us a bit of a spoiler here, which comes back to a thing I talk about a lot, which is in a morality play, are the parts that are good morality also good theatre? And I think it's the mark of a good playwright when they are, but that is kind of rare.
I think what's interesting about this first act, this first unit of action, is yes, it's very didactic, but you've got a little bit of visualness to it, but it's also very short. He's actually got a lot of economy, has Bale. He will do hectoring talks, but they're not that long. Yeah. We've done plays with long hectoring talks. And actually Bale is quite good at the economy there. He does 5 stanzas, and he does that pretty much with all his plays, his introductions. 5 stanzas, bish bash bosh, and you're out. And then this opening scene, which is quite short. Everybody gets their icon, their signifier. This is your thing, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's not like I'm sitting here going, I'm bored now, I would like to something to happen. Actually, it sort of feels about the right length. Feel free to disagree if you're appallingly bored.
No, I was surprised by that. I was expecting it to go on an awful lot longer to ram it home, and actually I wasn't bored by it at all. It held my attention even.
Okay, well, I think we're going to get into a much longer Act 2, and say we have a lot more action with. Mostly, I think we're going to see Vice, as it were. I will see if we can find a pause point. We won't look at singing the song now. I'll just ask Greg, but we may look at that in isolation a little later on, if that seems reasonable. So Natural Law is still on stage. Everybody else has left. Natural Law, of course, being first in the pecking order. So Natural Law, and you're going to be interrupted by someone in a moment.
The law, in effect, is a general teacher, what is to be done and what is to be laid aside. But as touching me, the first law natural, a knowledge I am, whom God in man doth hide, in his whole working to be to him a guide, to honour his God and seek his neighbour's health, a great occasion of peace and public wealth. A sore change I have, mankind to oversee, and to instruct him, his Lord God to obey. That Lord of heaven grant I may so do my duty, that he be pleased, a man brought to a stay, his brittle nature, his slipperness to weigh. Much doth provoke me, but if God set to hand, he shall do full well, for none may him withstand.
Broom, 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 bang, broom, bye. Brooms for shoes and pantries, boots and buskins for new brooms. Broom, broom, broom. Marry, God give you good. Marry, God give you good even. And the holy man Saint Stephen send you a good new year. I would have brought ye the pax, or else an image of wax, if I had known ye here. I will myself so handle that ye shall have a candle when I come hither again. At this your sudden motion, I was in such devotion, I had near broke a vein.
That might have done ye smart.
No, it was but a fart for pastime of my heart. I would ye had it forsooth. In syrup or in sauce, but annoyance for easement of your tooth. Now have I my dream indeed. God send me well to speed, and sweet Saint Anthony, I thought I should meet a knave. Now that fortune I have among this company.
Why dost thou call me knave?
I said I would be your slave if your grace would me have, and do your work anon. I would so rub your boots thereof you should from the roots when ye should do them on.
Thou art disposed to mock. Soon mayst thou have a knock, if thou with me so gain.
Your mouth shall kiss my dock, your tongue shall it unlock. But I say, what is your name?
I am the law of nature.
I thought so by your stature, by your ancient gature. You were of such a rapture when I first heard ye speak. You commoned with God lately, and now you are his bailing mankind to rule discreetly. Welcome, Sir Huddy Peak.
If thou use such villainy, I shall displease thee truly.
By the mass, I thee defy with thy whole cuckoldry, and all that with thee hold.
Why dost thou me blaspheme, and so ungodly deem?
For by this blessed book, I wot ye had been a coke, and that made me so bold, for a coke once having age, with a face demure and sage, and ancient to behold, as you have here in place, with a beard upon your face, what is he but a cuckold?
Ye are disposed to dally, to leap and oversail. The compass of your wit, I counsel ye yet in season, somewhat to follow reason, and gnaw upon the bit.
Then after our great madness, let us fall to some sadness, and tell me what ye intend.
God sent me unto man to do the best I can, to cause him to amend such creatures as want reason, my rules obey each season, and that in every border the sun and moon doth move with the other bodies above, and never break their order. The trees and herbs doth grow, the sea doth ebb and flow, and varieth not a nail. The floods and wholesome springs, with other natural things, their course do never fail. The beasts and birds engender, so do the fishes tender, according to their kind. A lonely man doth fall from good laws natural, but by a froward wicked mind.
Now will I prove ye a liar, next cousin to a friar, and on the gown ye rub. Ye say that they follow your law, and vary not a straw, which is a tale of a tub. The sun, once in the eclipse, away the clearness slips, and darkened is the day. Of the planet's influence ariseth the pestilence, to many ones decay. Doth not the sea so rage, that none can it assuage, and swallow in town and street? The air which giveth breath, sometime infecteth to death by his most pestilent heat. The beasts oft undemure, which were left to man's cure, will him sometime devour. Those are your rules forgot as things of slender note in creatures' day and hour.
It is the will of God to use them as a rod of his just punishment, when man doth not regard the Lord nor his reward, nor to his laws consent, they never are so wronnish. But when God doth man punish for his unhappiness, from God they never fall, nor from laws natural doing his business.
And you are the same law that keep them under your awe by your most politic wit.
God hath appointed me mankind to oversee, and in his heart to sit, to teach him for to know, in the creatures high and low, his glorious majesty, and on his name to call, all power celestial in his necessity, to think him everlasting and wonderful in working, and that he createth all, both govern and conserve. From them he never swerve, and to such faith will fall.
Indeed, here is good sport. But why do you resort unto this present place?
Man always to exhort, to seek all health and comfort of the only God of grace. First in their hearts rejoice, and then with open voice to worship him alone, acknowledging his deity, his power and eternity, when he shall make his moan.
I shall keep ye as well from that as my grandam kept her cat from licking of her cream.
What wilt thou keep me fro? Tell me ere thou farther go, methink thou art in a dream.
From causing of mankind to give God his mind or his obedience.
What is thy name? Tell me.
Marry, infidelity, which never will agree to your benevolence.
Thou canst not keep me from man.
Yet will I do the best I can to trouble ye now and then, that ye shall not prevail. I will cause idolatry and most vile sodomy, to work so ungraciously ye shall of your purpose fail.
I defy thee, wicked fiend, with thy whole venomous kind. God putteth now in my mind to flee thy company.
Ye are too blessed a saint, and yourselves a welcome paint, that I must me acquaint with you no remedy.
Avoid, thou cruel enemy. I will none of thee truly, but shun thy company as I would the devil of hell.
God indeed, small within be your speed. Except you take good heed, I will be next of your counsel. Now while I work such mastery by crafts and subtle policy, the Lord of nature to poison with pestilent idolatry, and with most stinking sodomy, that he shall have no foison. Well, are these villain knaves the devil's own kitchen slaves, that them I cannot see? I conjure you both here, and charge ye to appear like two knaves as ye be.
And we'll just pause there before the evil assembles or whatever. It's interesting. We had three good people who split off, and then we have the assemblance of three less worthy peoples. It's a really interesting. There's some really good stuff being thrown out here. Again, some of the examples of some of the slightly weirder elements of Bale's word choices. I mean, slipperness to way.
Yes.
You know, we'd say slipperiness, and today, you know, it's a deliberate word choice. It's always nice to have people kiss my dock is always a welcome. Kiss. Always a welcome addition. A couple of word missings. I apologise. There's a annoyance of the house. I apologise that you had no house in your script.
That's all right, because I just ended up making you seem to freeze into your tooth and just sort of. But yeah, I thought that was missing.
Yeah, it was a missing, and there was also I loved the way you were trying to make forgot rhyme with note, and it was actually more for goat. It's spelt GOTE in the original spelling. So. But I think that would have slightly skewered the angle. I mean, there was a little bit of four elements for a bit there. I don't mean that in a particularly serious way of actual borrowings, but yeah, just the idea of talking about natural order and things, and Infidelitas saying no, enough with experts. We don't want those. So, how did we find this as a continuation, a variation on the action? How do we find that in comparison with the first scene?
The change of rhythm was actually really striking. I mean, it actually reminded me of a rap battle. It's so kind of dense with references, a lot of which I don't get, but it's like listening to modern day rap where stuff is thrown back and forth, and there's all these very topical references that are heavily internally rhymed and slightly off rhymed, which I know might be to do with the OP. But I like the fact that kind of Infidelitas sets that rhythm, and natural law has no choice but to kind of be sucked into it. And even when he sort of reverts to his message, he's sort of still using the same rhythm. So I was trying to think, like, I always like trying to think how you would do these plays today, and I don't know that I've heard enough of this yet to know whether you could or how it would work. But that was just the image in my head of like two rappers kind of circling.
Infidelitas had all the best lines.
Yeah, it's sort of the joy of being evil.
Yeah.
What was the line in the play we did last week? The good ones get the bad entrances and the vices get the best. I very much felt this in this again. It was like, yeah, great entrance for a vice, that one.
Yeah, and when, as Alex says, when the lines get shorter, the pace feels faster, even if the speech is the same, even if the speech is a similar length. There's a quickness, there's an energy to it, which, together with the turn into comedy from seriousness, even when natural law goes into his speech that is reminiscent of the four elements, where he lays out the structure of the universe and why it's a lovely and benevolent thing. You know, even when he's pontificating, it does make it seem quicker and snappier. And, you know, in general, I think this scene works really well.
So at the end of the scene, Infidelitas is calling forth his mates to and it's really interesting. He's basically just sort of shouting. He's like he's conjuring them, but he's also just shouting into the wing. It sort of manages to do both at the same time that I really like.
I liked how we found out how that natural law just buggered off in inverted commas, because Infidelity's next line was rather glorious. As where is he? Where's that buggered off? I was just enjoying myself then.
Yes.
Could I ask coming up in those? I might be being ignorant, but in those sort of little parentheses, Sodomismus as monarchus and Idolatria as necromantic. What is the significance of?
To be honest, I don't actually know yet. I could check and read a footnote.
It may be a thing with the character headings, since the actors are all meant to double various roles. They may have. I don't know, or maybe we'll get dialogue later on where they're like, "No, you thought I was this, but really I'm that." Possibly, who knows?
Right. No, it's a costume. It's a costume. It's a straightforward costume note. So at the top of the play.
Sodomy's a monk, isn't he?
Yeah, Sodomy is dressed as a monk. Idolatry is decked like an old witch.
Chromatic.
1 second, I can do this.
I don't have a monk costume hanging around it.
Oh, and I don't have the witch. Sorry.
And Sodomismus is those opening lines intimated are from off stage, as you're sort of, we'll be with you in a moment kind of action. So you've conjured these people on stage, and lo and behold, they arrive. So yes, monk and old witch. So let's just do the last 3 lines of your Infidelitas, would you, Greg?
Just a quick question, because I'll probably forget by the time we get to the next pause. What's Tetragrammaton?
Ooh. It's the 4 letters of Yahweh, isn't it? YHWH. I think. That's at least what it means to me in Jewish.
Where was it, or is it to come?
It's just coming up. That's why. It's just curious.
Yes, I think that fits. Yes.
Cool. Okay, last 4 lines of.
Last 3. I conjure you both here.
I conjure you both here, and charge you to appear like 2 knaves as ye be.
Ambo is a name full clean. Know ye not what I mean, and are so good a clerk?
Tetragrammaton, I charge ye appear anon and come out of the dark.
And so they both enter simultaneously.
Have in then, at a with shabash, marry Annette swash. Yet may I not be too rash, for my holy order's sake.
Nor I, son, by my troth. You got a courage of sloth, and such a cumbrous cough. I wot not what to do.
At Christmas and at Pasch ye may dance the devil a mask, while his great cauldron plough you such a pretty minion, and you now in religion. Such too I never saw. Is not thy name Idolatry?
Yes, an wholesome woman, verily, and well seen in philosophy. Men's fortunes she can tell. She can, by saying her Ave Mary, and by other charms of sorcery, ease men of toothache by and by, yea, and fetch the devil from hell. She can milk the cow and hunt the fox, and help men of the ague and pox, so they bring money to the box when they to her make moan. She can fetch again all that is lost, and draw drink out of a rotten post.
What? Sometime thou wert, and he, without the help of the Holy Ghost in working, she is alone.
Yea, but now I am a she, and a good midwife, perdie. Young children I can charm, with whisperings and wishings, with crossings, with kissings, with biasings, and with blessings, that sprites do them no harm.
Then thou art like to Clisthenes, to Clodius and Euclides, Napulus and Hercules, which themselves oft transformed into a woman's likeness, with agility and quickness, but that they had Venus's sickness, as writers have declared.
Let her tell forth her matter.
With holy oil and water I can so cloyne and clatter, that I can at the latter many subtleties contrive. I can work wiles in battle, if I do once but spattle. I can make corn and cattle, that they shall never thrive. When ale is in the vat, If the brewer please me not, the cast shall fall down flat, and never have any strength. Now no man shall tun, nor bake, nor meat in season make, if I against him take, but lose his labour at length. Their wells I can up dry, cause trees and herbs to die, and slay all pullery, whereas men doth me move. I can make stools to dance, and earthen pots to prance, that none shall them enhance, and I do but cast my glove. I have charms for the plough, and also for the cow. She shall give milk enow, so long as I am pleased. Apace the mill shall go, so shall the cradle do, and the mustard quern also, no man therewith diseased.
Then thou art for me fit.
The woman hath a wit, and by her gear can sit, though she be somewhat old. It is mine own sweet bully, my muskin and my mully, my glover and my cully, yea, mine own sweetheart of gold.
I say yet not too bold.
Peace, fondling, touch a button.
What? Wilt thou fall to mutton, and play the hungry glutton afore this company? Rank love is full of heat, where hungry dogs lack meat, they will dirty puddings eat for want of beef and coney. Aye, minion, for money as good as draught as honey, when the day is hot and sunny, by the blessed rood of Kent.
Say forth your mind, good mother, for this man is none other but our own loving brother, and is very well content.
I never miss, but palter our blessed Lady's psalter before Saint Saviour's altar with my beads once a day. And this is my common cast, to hear mass first or last, and the Holy Friday fast in good time, I might it say. With blessings of Saint German, I will me so determine that neither fox nor vermin shall do my chickens harm. For your geese, seek Saint Ligard, and for your ducks Saint Leonard. For horse, take Moses' yard, there is no better charm. Take me a napkin fold, with bias of a bolt, for the healing of a colt, no better thing can be. For lamps and for bots, take me Saint Wilfrid's knots, and holy St. Thomas lots, on my life I warrant ye. For the cough, take Judas' ear with the paring of a pear, and drink them without fear, if you will have remedy. 3 sips are for the hiccock, and 6 more for the chickock. Thus may my pretty peacock recover by and by. If you cannot sleep but slumber, give oats unto Saint Uncumber, and beans in a certain number unto Saint Blaise and Saint Blythe. Give onions to Saint Cutlake, and garlic to Saint Syriac. If you will shun the headache, you shall have them at Queen Hive. A dram of sheep's turtle, and good Saint Francis girdle, with the amlet of an hurdle, are wholesome for the pip. Besides these charms afore, I have feats many more, that I keep still in store, whom now I overhip.
It is a sport, I trow, to hear how she outblow her witchcrafts on a row. By the mass, I must needs smile. And now I pray thee let me know what seeds that thou canst sow mankind to overthrow, and the law of nature beguile.
Myself I so behave, and am so vile a knave, as nature doth deprave and utterly abhor. I am such a vice truly, as God in his great fury did punish most terribly in Sodom and in Gomorrah. In the flesh I am a fire, and such a vile desire as bring men to the mire of foul concupiscence. We two together began to spring and to grow in man, as St. Thomas of Aquinas scan in the 4th book of his sentence. I dwelt among the Sodomites, the Benjamites, the Madianites, and now the popish hypocrites embrace me everywhere. I am now become all spiritual, for the clergy at Rome and over all, for want of wives, to me doth fall, to God they have no fear. The children of God I did so move, that they the daughters of men did love, working such ways as did not behove, till the flood them overwent. With Noah's son Ham I was half joined, when he his drunken father scorned. In the Gomorites I also reigned, till the hand of God them brent. I was with Onan not unacquainted, when he on the ground his increase shed, for me his brethren Joseph accused, as Genesis doth tell. David once warned all men of us two, do not as mules and horses will do. Confounded be they that to images go, those are the ways to hell. Both Esau and Ezekiel, both Jeremy and Daniel, of us the abominations tell, with the prophets every one. For us too God strake with fire and water, with battle, with plagues and fearful matter, with painful exile, then a delater into Egypt and Babylon. As Paul to the Romans testify, the Gentiles, after idolatry, fell to such bestial sodomy that God did them forsake. Who followeth us, as he confess, the kingdom of God shall never possess, and as the Apocalypse express, shall sink to the burning lake. We made Thalon and Sophocles, Thamiras, Nero, Agathocles, Tiberius and Aristoteles themselves to use unnaturally. I taught Aristo and Fulvius, Semiramis and Hortensius, Crates, Hiliscus and Pontius, beasts to abuse most monstrously.
Marry, thou art the devil himself. You're on mute.
If he knew how he could pelf, ye would say he were such an elf as none under heaven were else.
The fellow is well decked, disguised, and well necked, both knave-bold and pie-picked. He lacketh nothing but bells.
In the first age I began, and so persevered with man, and still will, if I can, so long as he endure. If monkish sects renew, and popish priests continue, which are of my retinue, to live I shall be sure. Clean marriage they forbid, yet cannot their ways be hid. Men know what hath betid, when they have been in peril. Oft have they buried quick, such as were never sick. Full many a proper trick they have to help their quarrel. In Rome to me they fall, both bishop and cardinal, monk, friar, priest, and all, more rank they are than ants. Example in Pope July, which sought to have in his fury 2 lads, and to use them beastly from the Cardinal of Nantes.
Well, you two are for my mind. Step forth, and do your kind. Leave never a point behind that may corrupt in man the law writ in his heart. In his flesh do thy part, and his soul to pervert do thou the best thou can. Here have thy pretty gins, both brooches, beads, and pins with such as the people wins. Take thou parts of them here, beads, rings, and other gear, and shortly thee bestir to deceive man properly. Take this same staff and script with a god here of a chip, and good bow down forward hip to set forth pilgrimage. Set thou forth sacramentals, say dirge and sing for trentals. Study the Pope's decretals and mix them with buggerage. Here is a stool for love. Here's a stool for thee, a ghostly father to be, to hear Benedicte. A box of cream and oil. Here is a purse of relics, rags, rotten bones, and sticks. A taper with other tricks. Show them in every soil.
I will corrupt God's image with most unlawful usage, and bring him into dotage of all concupiscence.
Within the flesh thou art, but I dwell in the heart, and will the soul pervert from God's obedience.
Spare none of imagination, nor detestable fashion, that man's imagination by wit may comprehend. To quicken our sprites among, sing now some merry song, but let it not be long, lest we too much offend.
And they're going to, after the song that is going to be sung, Infidelity shall it say in a high or loud voice, "Let us pray, Almighty and everlasting God, who have formed the laity in our image and likeness, grant, we beg, that we, just as we live by their sweat, so may we deserve to enjoy perpetually their wives, daughters, and maidservants, through our Lord Pope." If you would like to read that in Latin, that's entirely up to you. No, that's fine.
No, that's fine.
So,
Even I can't do that.
so they sing a song and do some mock Latin, which is really fun if you know what it means. Exit Sodomismus and Idolatria, Infidelitas is left behind.
Now are these whoresomes forth. It will be somewhat worth to see how they will work. The one to poison the heart, the other the outward part ingeniously will lurk. The Lord of nature they will infect, corrupt, and spill with their abomination. Idolatry with wickedness, and sodomy with filthiness, to his most utter damnation. These two will him so use, each one in their abuses, and wrap him in such evil, that by their wicked cast he shall be, at the last, a morsel for the devil. Now, underneath her wings, idolatry have kings with their nobility, but dukes, lords, knights, and earls, fair ladies with their pearls, and the whole commonalty. Within the bounds of sodomy doth dwell the spiritual clergy, pope, cardinal, and priest, nun, canon, monk, and friar, with so many else's do desire to reign under Antichrist. Detesting matrimony, they live abominably and burn in carnal lust. Shall I tell you further news? At Rome, the prelates are shews of both kinds. This is just. The law of nature, I think, will not be able to wink against the assaults of them, they having so high prelates and so many great estates from hence to Jerusalem. Pause now a little while. My ears doth me beguile if I hear not a sound. You folk have sped, I guess it is so by the mess. Way now will I round.
And he exits, and the law of nature, natural law, enters and isn't feeling very well.
Oh.
I think ye marvel to see much alteration at this time in me whom God left here so pure. Of me it cometh not, but of man's operation, whom daily the devil to great sin doth allure, and his nature is full brittle and unsure. By him have I got this foul disease of body, and, as ye see here, am now thrown in leprosy. I wrought in his heart, as God bade me, earnestly, him oft provoking to love God over all, with the inner powers. But that false idolatry hath him perverted by sleights diabolical, and so hath sodomy through his abuses carnal, that he is now lost, offending without measure, and I corrupted. To my most high displeasure, I abhor to tell the abusions bestial that they daily use, which boast their chastity. Some at the altar to incontinency fall, in confession some full beastly occupied be. Among the close nuns reigneth this enormity. Such children slay they as they chance for to have, and in their privies provide them of their grave. Ye Christian rulers, see you for this away. Be not eluded by false hypocrisy. By the stroke of God the world will else decay. Permit, priest, rather God's lawful remedy, than they should incur most bestial sodomy. Regard not the Pope, nor yet his whorish kingdom, for he is the master of Gomorrah and of Sodom. With man have I been, which hath me thus defiled with idolatry and unclean sodomy. And worthy I am from God to be exiled. Pity me yet, Lord, of thy most bounteous mercy. I will forth and mourn till thou send remedy. Promise hast thou made to a glorious liberty, to bring heaven and earth. Then wilt thou, I trust, restore me.
And thus ends Act 2, and exit poor old natural law. It's there's so much to say. So much to say. I mean, it's fascinating. You go back a few years, and you've got a writer like John Hayward, writing about abuses of the clergy, writing about the kind of stuff that Liza was doing there with the selling of quack cures and things like that, and things that are close to idolatry. I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone's feed in my ear. I don't know if that. Anyway, I'll keep talking and hopefully it'll be sorted. But yeah, then you get to this, and it's so much more explicit and it's so much harsher. I mean, it's really talking about some pretty big things. I mean, we got the fun stuff mixed in with, when idolatry. We get all this stuff. We get her selling her version of Viagra, and my the peacock arising there. Saint Uncumber we've had before somewhere else. I'm sure that's probably in all that stuff. It's traditional patter, and then the aggression against the Catholic Church, and then that bit about the nuns.
Please have gone. I didn't know where
the bit about the nun. I mean, that I just wrote wow next to that. And there's a part of me wondering, especially when he talks about detesting matrimony, they live abominably and burning carnal lust. He used to be a Carmelite friar, and I'm wondering whether he is actually working his way through something here. There's something. It's so intense. And it gets so pointed. Those are my thoughts about the general buggerage of it all. Anyone want to leap in?
Well, the definition of sodomy seems much broader. It seems to sort of include all illicit sex, and there are references to homosexuality as well as heterosexuality, and basically it seems to include all sex outside marriage, and including biblical examples. Idolatry is fascinating. There's she seems to be being portrayed as a witch. There seem to be she seems to be associated with folk remedies, with customs and superstitions, some of which I recognize, some of which were actual things that people did or believed. And that all seems to be very heavily wound in with Catholicism, which again might also be a real thing. Some of the remedies that you read about, like there were remedies for skin diseases that you were supposed to put on your skin and then say 3 paternosters, and that was supposed to be the time it took for it to work. And there were specific saints that, according to Catholic science, there were specific saints that ruled specific parts of the body who you were supposed to invoke for ailments in those parts. Which is sort of a holdover from the ancient Greeks, who also had various gods ruling various parts of the body. And then there's some image worship there, where this was a big Reformation thing, where in Catholic churches you would have images of saints and people would bring them offerings, and they would be put in beautiful clothes, and they would be given flowers on various days, and Protestants, or at least some Protestants, saw this as idolatry and saw it as the saints being worshipped instead of God, rather than as intermediaries to God. So Bale conflates Catholicism with a sort of paganism. I'm being very careful about connecting this sort of traditional stuff with modern neo-paganism, because I think that's kind of a spurious connection.
Yeah.
But it's a useful window as to how at least some people thought at the time.
She's very much a Dame Serith type figure. She's a type that goes back, hundreds and hundreds of years and played around with. Other thoughts in the room before we go into the next act? Annaliese?
I just wanted to comment on that line that jumped out at me, that he seems to be making the case against clerical celibacy when he's talking about. He addresses not spiritual rulers like the Pope, obviously it's Bale, but he says he addresses ye Christian rulers. See you this for this away. Permit priests rather God's lawful remedy. Well, God's lawful remedy to me sounds like marriage. He seems to be making that case quite strongly. And obviously Bale, when he steps down as a prior, he himself does marry. So you said he was working through something, and I think he's obviously seen firsthand clerical abuses, and he's obviously seeing that marriage is one way of perhaps addressing some of that behaviour, because that's some of the things that he's talking about there with the nuns and what's happening in these different orders.
But of course, the additional political thing is, he's part of a setup that's trying actively to get rid of.
Yes. He's making those addresses not to spiritual leaders. He's making them to, secular rulers. You Christian rulers, rather. Sorry, not secular rulers, but
he's very much connected with Thomas Cromwell at the moment, and that's part of it. Still definitely getting some odd feedback. Also seemed to be somebody having someone knocking through into the next room. I don't know who feed that is.
I think it's mine. I have no idea what the neighbors are up to. I don't think they're objecting to me because they also knock when it's silent. I just hope that they'll be done eventually. And meanwhile, that's why I'm muting myself at awkward moments. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I should apologise as well. My headphone batteries died literally as we just finished reading that scene, so I had to re-battery them. So I missed the beginning of the discussion and came in as Liza was talking about the folk remedy stuff, which I found very interesting. There's sort of almost something that people in the audience would probably be nodding, going, "Oh God, I do that."
Liza made a good point. I don't know if you heard. Was just talking. Was it Liza? Was it someone made the point about the wideness of the definition of what they're talking about? That sodomy is not just interested in buggerage. It is interested in a whole sort of plethora of things.
Well, I found it quite. I mean, I studied sort of early modern homosexuality, if such a thing existed, when I was at university, not practically, like writing about it academically. And I found it very interesting that you didn't really have a term for it, that things like ingle and bugger just applied to anyone who did not do, they could be adulterers, they could be what we would call bestialists, they could be incestuous, that it's sort of seem to cover a multitude of sins, quite literally, and I think it says very interesting things from a standpoint of gay history, I guess, as to self-identification. What was that? Because there was no label to put on it. Was it right? Was it wrong? How could you judge it? Did you just lump it in with everything else, or was it something that stood apart from that? Just slightly irrelevant to this, but yeah, it's interesting that he really bangs those Old Testament examples home as well.
I have got noted. Bale just can't help but deliver footnotes. He does live footnotes. He can't help himself. Every so often, it just happens. It's just it comes out.
I found my new audition speech there.
Stephen, you look like you have thoughts.
I was just thinking about sodomy. It's to do with lack of restraint, isn't it? I think that's the point. It is gendered, I think, too, but it because in this period, sex and intimacy between people are not configured in the same way as they are now, and sort of passionate same-sex attachments are quite a common thing, but not necessarily having sex involved. So sodomy has kind of changed its meaning, but it's to do, I think in the play, it's to do with letting go of yourself. And the crime of sodomy is very often about enforcement or transgression in other ways too. It's not necessarily just an act. you know, in a kind of clinical, as it were, literally clinical sense. It's a transgressive thing which is about males particularly not controlling themselves and or seeking to control others. And so it's a kind of catch-all, which is, you know, I think if there wasn't such an anti-Catholic bias in there, I think he could have chosen lots and lots of, you know, he could have chosen sensuousness or something like that. Would have done the job perfectly well. But it's also he's taking on the state, isn't he? You know, this is a political morality. It's not just an allegory for everybody. This is kind of history, sort of read through that, and I think that's how we end up with Sodomismus.
Yeah, because you're right. I mean, otherwise framed, this would be your traditional voluptuous vice, and you could tone elements down. I mean, there's part of me that's feeling quite bad about enjoying quite a lot of this, because it's so extreme, but it is also very theatrically effective. And there's something quite disturbing about that, actually. There's
some really bizarre. I'd forgotten that bit in the Bible. I think in the King James it's written as like uncovered his father's nakedness, but that whole weirdness about Ham discovering Noah in his tent, I've never really understood what that is. Like,
it's just when you forget to lock the toilet door. I mean, scarred for life.
It's something really dark there. I love that he's footnoting those weird things, but at the same time, yeah, I feel a bit guilty for enjoying.
It's a sort of anthropological take, isn't it? This sort of pollution and shame going on there. You know, there's a sort of sense of it. I don't know. There's a detachment from it at the same time as a passionate involvement, I think, which is kind of cutting below local instances of culture.
Sorry.
Go on.
I think what's interesting to me is it's missing an everyman figure.
Yeah.
So you discuss what you're going to do, but as far as I can see so far, there's not been somebody there to do it too. Most plays you at least have somebody, a humankind figure that sort of sits there and takes it. Whereas this one doesn't. It's interesting.
It's interesting. It's corruption over time as well. It's to all, you know. The first stage is destroying natural law by doing unnatural deeds, and then the next act is Moses' act, and that's the next step. And you know, it's where the fight back happens, and that's why natural law turns up. With leprosy, I mean, it's, you know, I'm thinking leprosy. Are we thinking leprosy? Are we thinking more syphilis here? You know, what? It's again, is it a sort of catch-all word? And I say that whole bit when it's talking about the nuns, you know, and disposing of bodies. I mean, it's suddenly so dark. Francis, any thoughts before we move on from you?
The only comment I have is that sodomy had that long list of adherents, including Sophocles and a couple of Roman emperors, and I was surprised that Hadrian wasn't on that list, because he had a boyfriend, a much younger boyfriend, I believe. Yeah.
Antinous.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could I just say about leprosy as well? That's such a visceral thing, isn't it? That's a visceral form of rejection. It's not just kind of not interested in the law of nature. We're actually shunning it as a well, you know, the discourses of pollution around leprosy again, aren't there? I think it's a really interesting perspective on how these things happen and what state things end up in.
Okay, we move into Act 3. I don't know whether we will complete Act 3 or not. We're a bit tight. It's a slightly untidily shaped play to do in 2 sessions. So we'll go into Act 3, see how far we get before we hit extra time, and see whether we complete Act 3 or whether we find some slightly awkward place to pause. So, okay. And so the Act, we have the entrance of Moses' law, and in a moment Infidelitas will join him.
The Lord, perceiving his first law thus corrupted with unclean vices, sent me his law of Moses, to see him for sin substantially corrected and brought in again to a trade of godliness. For I am a law of rigor and of hardness. I straitly command, and if it be not done, I threaten, I curse, and slay in my anger soon. To God I require a perfect obedience. Condemning all such as do it not, in effect I show what sin is. I burden sore man's conscience. To him am I death, when his life is infect. Yet if he take heed, to Christ I him direct, forgiveness to have with light health and salvation, lest he should despair and fall into damnation.
A pastime, quotha! I know not the time nor when I did laugh so much since I was an honest man. Believe me, and ye well, I never saw such a sport. And would ye have been there, that he might have made thee thought?
Where wouldst have had me? Tell me, good brother mine.
At the Minories, sir, late yesternight at Compline.
At the Minories? Why, what was there ado?
For such another would I to Southampton go. Indeed, yesterday it was their dedication, and thither in God's name came I to see the fashion. An old friar stood forth with spectacles on his beginning. This anthem on my face I do not gloss.
And here he sings, or he would sing, an anthem which translates as precious stones, used for the dedication of churches, apparently.
Was that nose due at the end of that line?
There should be, yes.
Yes,
I'm just checking that. Spectacles on his nose, yes, it should be.
Yep.
And what did follow of this?
Tell ye, sir, by God's bliss. Then came Dame Isbel, an old nun and a calm, crowing like a capon, and thus began the psalm. Scepe expurgaverunt mea juventute mea.
And what includeth this mystery?
A simple problem of bitchery. When the friar began afore the nun to sing of precious stones, from my youth, said she, they have comfort me, as it had been for the nuns.
I assure thee plain, I set not by such gauds. Thy usage shows thee to be brought up among bawds.
It was a good world when we had such wholesome stories preached in our church on Sundays and other ferries. With us it was it merry when we went to bury unto Our Lady of Grace, to the blood of Hales when no good cheer fails, and other holy place. When the priests might walk and with young wives talk, then we had when the priests might walk and with young wives talk, then we had children plenty. Then cuckolds might leap a score on a heap, nor is there not 1 to 20 when the monks were fat and rank as a rat, with bellies like a boar, then all things were dear. Both beef, bread, and beer now grudge the jurors sore, when bishops might burn and from the truth turn the silly, simple soul, then durst no man creak, open mouth, nor speak of Christ, nor yet of Paul. Now are the knaves bold with scriptures to hold, and teach them everywhere. The carter, the centre, the bodger, the clouter, that all will away, I fear. And as us so they pull, our livings are dull. We are now like to fall. If we do not fight for the church's right, by the mass we shall lose all. But I pray you, sir, tell me, what is your name?
The law of Moses. To lie I were to blame.
In these same passage, what do you now intend?
Mankind to reform, that he his life amend. I show what sin is, and what thing pleaseth God. I comfort the just, and the ill I punish with the rod. The common people have thought it commoditious, diverse gods to have, with rites superstitious. My commandment is to seek one God alone, and in all their needs to him to make their moan. Among the Gentiles was it thought none injury, if a man were hurt, to slay his adversary. This thing I forbid, and say thou shalt not kill. Law is the revenger, the man may do no ill. Some persons there are that inordinately love. Those are persuaded all things them to behove, which I inhibit, saying continually, no rape shalt thou do, nor commit adultery. Thou shalt do no theft, nor covet that is not thine. Against thy neighbor thou shalt not falsely divine.
We may do nothing if we be pinned in thus. Neither you nor God to that hard trade shall bring us. We must have one God and worship him alone. Marry! That indeed will make a Turk to groan. If we be stricken, we may not strike again. A proper bargain, and discreetly uttered plain. For company's sake ye say we may not love? I defy you worst, and to you there is my glove.
What, thou wilt not fight? Thy wits are better than so.
In the quarrel of love, I shall prove ye ere I go. By the mass, I think to put ye to your fence.
Thou wert much better to keep thy patience.
Nay, by cock's soul, friend, I must lay ye on the coat. In love's cause thou find ye may soon have me afloat. Nay, have it your pilch, defend ye if ye may.
Such a fool art thou as seek thine own decay. If I once meddle, to thee it will be death. Didst thou never hear that law slayeth in his wrath?
By the blessed Lord, then I will play Robson's part.
Why, what part wilt thou play?
By cock's soul, give orders so soon as I feel smart.
It will be too late, if I once couple with thee.
And let me alone, and we shall soon agree, and I shall be glad to be acquainted with ye.
Acquaintance, good fellow, thou mayst soon have of me.
The worst fault I am hasty now and then, but it is soon gone I took it of a woman. But what mean those tables that ye have in your hand?
Keep silence a while, and thou shalt understand. 3 things I declare. First are the precepts moral, next the laws judicial, and last the rites ceremonial. The moral precepts are God's commandments 10, which there ought evermore to be observed of all men. The laws of nature the moral precepts declare, and the pleasant works to God they teach and prepare. They stir man to faith, and provoke him also to love, to obey, to serve, and to worship God above. In 2 stony tables God wrote them first of all, that they should remain as things continual. The first hath but 3, which tend to God's high honour. 7 hath the second, and they concern our neighbour. The first doth expound the first law natural, the next the other, making them very formal. In spirit is the first, that we should God honour and love. To outward working the second doth us move, forbidding all wrongs, preserving just marriage, nourishing true peace, and other godly usage.
What is the effect of your laws judicial?
Such things to command as are civil or temporal, from vice to refrain and outward injury, quiet to conserve and the public honesty. These are to support the laws of the second table. Ceremonial rites are also commendable in holy days, garments, temples, and consecrations, sacrifices and vows with offerings and expiations, which are unto Christ as figures, types, and shadows, as Paul doth declare in his epistle to the Hebrews. These are only figures and outward testimonies. No man is perfect by such dark ceremonies, only pertain they unto the 3rd commandment of the Sabbath day, till Christ the Lord be present, in his death ending the whole judicial priesthood.
Good days, mighty, have ye speak it full well by the rood. I am a poor lad, and by my troth bent earnestly to wait upon ye, and to be your very lackey.
What art thou called, I pray thee heartily?
Grey friar, my nun, by the mass. I cannot flatter. I am infidelity, to tell truth of the matter.
And hast thou so long dissembled with me?
Yea, for advantage to smell out your subtlety.
Avoid, hence I say thou false infidelity.
Nay, that I will not by Ingham Trinity.
Wilt thou not indeed? Then I will fetch hither the power of judges and kings to subdue thee within this hour.
And exit Moses' law.
Such Knights will I have as shall confound them all. The Sadducees and scribes with the sect Pharisaical. By help of my children, idolatry and sodomy, the Lord of nature I cast once in a lepery. I have yet two more, ambition and covetousness, which will do as much to the Lord of Moses where are my whoreson, that they come not away.
Yea, whoreson, on thy face, even in thy best array. I will thou know it, I am a worshipful doctor, a scribe in the law, and a profitable proctor.
God, with a vengeance. How comest thou so aloft?
I shall tell thee, man, if thou wilt common more soft, by feigned flattery and by coloured adulation, ambition here also rose out of a like foundation.
Come, hugs be my blessing like pratty boys of praise.
I will not bow sure to such a foolish face.
Heart's blessing, I say, and make no more ado.
Unseemly were it we prelates should do so.
For no compulsion will I do if, by sweet Mary,
I must fetch ye in, there is no remedy. A naughty whoresons have I brought ye up hitherto, and know not your father. You shall drink both ere I go.
No more at this time, forsooth we cry on mercy.
Yes, I should point out you're being beaten at that point.
Yes!
Infidelitas is beating them.
Sorry. Down on your knees then and ask me blessing shortly.
Bless me, gentle Father, for sweet Saint Charity.
Arise, naughty knaves. God let ye never to thee, though among ourselves we murmur, brag and face, sometime for lucre, sometime for the high place. Yet for advantage in this we all agree to blind the rulers and deceive the community. Commonality, sorry.
Art advised of that? By the mass we are indeed. Yet of our knaveries the fools will never take heed, to labour with a spade. Our colour would it fade, we may not with that trade, we love so much our ease. We must live by their sweat, and have good drink and meat, when they have not to eat the substance of a pease. We lead them in the dark, and so their conscience mark, that sturdy they are, and stark in every wicked evil. We teach idolatry, and laugh full merrily to see each company run headlong to the devil. If we may have the tithings and profitable offerings, we care not to what doings they customably fall. We are such mercenaries and subtle proprietaries, and from the flock all carries the wool, skin, flesh, and all. In our perambulations we look for commendations and lowly salutations in temple, house, and street. Our lousy Latin hours in borrows and embowers, and poor people devours, and tread them under our feet.
I am ambition, whose disposition is honour to a Pete. I gape for empire, and worship desire, as Minos did in Crete. I look up aloft, and love to lie soft, not caring for my flock. Have I once the fleece with pigs, lambs, and geese, they may go turn a sock. Lucifer I made so highly to wade, to God he would be equal. Of Adam and Eve I slew the believe, and caused them to fall. What need I rehearse? The giants most fierce, with the builders of Babel, Nimrod the tyrant, with them, their appliant, agreed to my counsel. From me would not go cruel Pharaoh, no more would Amalek, Saul, Achitophel, Absalom, Jezebel, nor Adomsedech. I made Roboam and Hiroboam, with Nebuchadnezzar, Tryphon, Alchemus, and Simon Magus, to abuse them evermore. In pride I exceed, and no people feed, but with lies for advantage. As Mantuan tell, to lead men to hell is my most common usage. High things I attempt, and will me exempt from prince's jurisdiction. I am such an evil as bring to the devil without any contradiction.
Here is a prelate even for mine own tooth. such another is not in the whole south. Clap thou somewhat more as thou hast begun. Ik like well your talking, but a holy nun.
I covetize am, the devil or his dam, for I am insatiate. I ravish and pluck, I draw and I suck after a wolfish rate. Father nor mother, sister nor brother, I spare not in my mood. I fear neither God nor his rightful rod. In gathering of good, both house and meadow, from the poor widow, I spare not for to take. Right heirs I rob, and as bare as Job, the fatherless I make. With me took Nadab and Nabal and Achab, with all the clergy of Bel, Judas and Gizi, with the sons of Eli and the sons of Samuel, Janus and Jambres, and Diotrephes wrought willful wickedness. So did Menelaus with false Andronicus, and all for covetousness.
With vices 7, I close up heaven and spear up paradise. I open hell by my counsel, maintaining every vice.
For silver and gold with falsehood I hold, supporting every evil. I have it in awe, for to choke the law and bring all to the devil.
Oh, by the blessed Trinity, no men more fit for me to do my business. Ambition to beguile, and avarice to defy the laws of Moses. Tell me first of all, what wilt thou do, ambition?
I am thine own child, thou knowest my disposition. I will sure do as did the Philistines.
Why, what did those knaves?
They stopped up Abraham's pits, as Genesis defines, with mud and with mire, and left them full unclean.
By that same practice, tell me what thou dost mean.
With filthy glosses and dirty expositions of God's law will I hide the pure dispositions. The key of knowledge I will also take away by rasting the text to the scriptures' sore decay.
Oh, and what wilt thou do, my fellow covetousness?
A veil will I spread upon the face of Moses, that none shall perceive the cleanness of his countenance, which is of the law the meaning and true ordinance.
Why, what will ye say unto the commandments?
We must poison them with will works and good intents, whereas God doth say, no strange gods thou shalt have. With saints worshipping that clause, we will deprave. And though he command to make no carved image, for a good intent yet will we have pilgrimage. Though he will us not to take his name in vain, with traditions, yet thereunto will we constrain. No Sabbath will we with God's word sanctify, but with lip labor and idle ceremony. To father and mother we may owe none obedience. Our religion is of so great excellence. Though we do not slay, yet may we heretics burn, if they will not soon from the holy scripture turn. What though it be said, thou shalt do no fornication, yet will we maintain such greater abomination. Though theft be forbid, yet will we continually rob the poor people through prayer and purgatory. God hath inhibited to give false testimony, yet we will condemn the gospel for heresy. We should not covet our neighbour's house nor wife, his servant nor beast, yet are we therein most rife. Of men we swine by the draught of our traditions, and cause them nothing to regard but superstitions. As dogs unreasonable on most vile carrion feed, so will we cause them seek idols in their need, and always their ground shall be for a good intent.
More mischiefs, I trow, the devil could not invent than you two can do. By the mass, ye are alone. Little could I do were ye once from me gone to the corrupting of the law of Moses. Go forward thereto in your deceitfulness.
with superstitions, the Jews' ceremonial laws, I will so handle they shall not be worth 2 straws. The laws judicial, through cautels and delays, I will also drown to all righteous men's decays. To set this forward, we must have sophistry, philosophy and logic as science necessary. The bishops must hold their priests in ignorance, with long Latin hours, lest knowledge to them chance. Let them have long matins, long evensongs and long masses, and that will make them as dull as ever were asses. But they shall never be able to prophesy, or yet preach the truth to our great injury. Let the cloisterers be brought up ever in silence, without the scriptures, in pain of disobedience. See the lay people pray never but in Latin. Let them have their creed and service all in Latin, that a Latin belief may make a Latin soul. Let them nothing know of Christ, nor yet of Paul. If they have English, let it be for advantage, for pardons, for dirges, for offerings and pilgrimage. I reckon to make them a new creed in a while, and all in English, their conscience to beguile.
Rehearse unto me the articles of that creed.
The articles are these. Give care and take good heed. First, they shall believe in our Holy Father Pope. Next, in his decrees and holy decretals. Then in Holy Church with censer, cross and cope. In the ceremonies and blessed sacramentals. In purgatory then, in pardons and in trentals. In praying to saints and in St. Francis's hood. In Our Lady of Grace and in the Blessed Rood. They shall believe also in relics and religion, in Our Lady's Psalter, in free will and good works, in the ember days and in the Pope's remission, in beads and in bells not used of the Turks, in the golden masses against such sprites as lurks, with charms and blessings. This creed will bring in money, in English therefore, we will it clerkly convey.
Yea, burthen knaves that will not believe that creed, as into the ditch the blind may lead.
Then I hold it best that we always condemn the Bible readers, lest they our acts condemn.
Yea, never spare them, but ever more play the biter, expressing always the tropes and types of thy mitre.
Why, what dost thou think my mitre to signify?
The mouth of a wolf, that shall I prove by and by. If thou stoop downwards, lo! See how the wolf doth gape, ready to devour the lambs, lest any escape. But thy wolfishness by 3 crowns will I hide, making thee a poop and a captain of all pride. But when thou dost slay such as thy laws contemn, thou mayest say, not I, but the powers did them condemn. These labels betoken the laws of see none and can none.
I trow thou would say the 2 laws, civil and canon.
As I spake, I thought and still think by St. John, yea, persecute still the instructors of the people, and thou, covetousness, let no bell ring in steeple without a profit. Tush! Take money everywhere, so nigh clip and shave that thou leave never a hair.
I caused the Pope to take, but now of late, of the Grey Friars, to have canonicate Franciscus de Pola, 3,000 ducats and more, and as much besides he had, for not long afore. For a cardinal had of the same holy order, thus draw we to us great goods from every border. Pope Clement VII paid once for his papacy 300,000 good ducats of lawful money.
I marvel how he could come to so much good.
Yes, yes, by pollage and by shedding Christian blood, croziers and mitres in Rome and good merchandise, and all too little to maintain their pomp and vice.
The Pope for whoredom hath in Rome and Viterbi of gold and silver a wonderful substance yearly. Tush, they be in England that much rather would to dwell whores in their diocese than the readers of Christ's gospel.
They do the better, for by them they may have profit. As for the other, do trouble them day and night. Well now, step forward and go do your business to the corrupting of the law of Moses.
Doubt not, but we shall make him a cripple blind.
Sing then at our farewell to recreate our mind.
And as the Latin says, then they sing the song on the next page, which isn't there. So a song overleaf. Keep hunting for it. So they sing a song, and they say, there is a little bit more of the text to go before the end of the act, but I think you can probably guess where it's going, and it's actually quite helpful to sort of start the next session. It's a slightly awkward place to stop, but so many things. It's not just that it's sort of living in 1538. I mean, it's so many of these references back to 1534. I mean, it's there's so many things. When you're talking about the holy nun, they might be talking about Elizabeth Barton, who was hanged in 1534, who was quite known as someone going around giving prophecies and suggesting that terrible things are going to be happening with the church, and maybe the king should not do some of the things he's thinking about doing. And many people were very convinced with her until some persuasion was purged on her person, and I say eventually was hanged. So yeah, there's so many little references there. The image of the mitre being sort of turned into a wolf. I found that fascinating. There's so many things, so many playings around with different verse shape styles. Don't ask me who Robson is. We don't know. The footnote I've got is really helpful footnote. Don't know. Yeah, and it's there's again, it's the same sort of game that we had the last scene, but in a slightly different order. And it's a question: is it still engaging, or would it still engage then? I mean, not now. After the first two acts. Thoughts on the room as we're into extra time, well into extra time. Who wants to leap in?
I don't know how thinking of from the point of view of a modern audience, how much it would sustain. I think you'd probably have to make those vices very individual in terms of characterization or the way they're dressed. Or I really like the sort of object manipulation puppetry of the mitre. I thought was like a lovely touch, and I guess also maybe in the way that the Mosaic law reacts to it in a way that natural law doesn't. Like it's really hard because that you do sort of become inured to the rhythms of the rhyming text after a while, and start to lose the meaning, starts to drift because the rhythm sort of sits so regularly. But I don't know whether it would have legs today. I don't know if I keep thinking maybe you'd have to do something like Theatre of Cruelty with it, or do a sort of multimedia thing. Those images at the beginning of The Hills Have Eyes, where it kind of sort of cuts through and you get these horrible images of all sorts of horrific things, like the nuns burying the child in the privies or something. Maybe something like that. You could do with it. But I mean, I was struck there again as well, because I'm always interested in the Jewish references, that having had a go at the Catholics and the neo-pagans, that is pretty much kind of going, it's avarice that blinds the Jews to Mosaic law, more or less was what I took from that. So he's really going for everyone. So I feel all my communities have been included.
Equal opportunities offender. It's
But
interesting. They're dressed as priests. I mean, that's the thing. The visual aspects. So you've got a priest and canon law, I think it was, says at the beginning, Pharisee or spiritual lawyer. So you've got that stuff going on. I don't think in a modern performance we could do anything without thoroughly introducing context. I don't, I'd see this as part of a sort of exploded session about the history of the time. I don't think you can do anything else with this. I mean, you could, but why would you?
No, that's why I thought Theatre of Cruelty, because sit your audience there and make them suffer.
Sorry, Francis wanted to step in.
Yeah, I take your point that he's having a go at everyone, the Christians, the Catholics, the Jews, but he's particularly bashing the Catholics. I mean, he just keeps on going on and on about the Pope. He's got a thing about popery.
Yeah, I mean, this is a it's a reflection of the time he was writing in.
Yeah.
And Catholics were seen as the immediate foe and the immediate threat, and to some degree, like the Rome would have been perfectly happy for Henry and then Elizabeth to be dethroned, and for England to come back under the Catholic Church, and there were whole schools in France and the Low Countries training agents to effect just that.
Well, the thing is, it's so early in that. There is a sense that even by 1538, that it's not there is a way back still, just. And that by Bale doing this, he is really putting himself on the line. He's really, because Henry doesn't believe half this stuff. Some of it, yeah, absolutely on the money, but he's really doctrinally. This is dangerous stuff. This is explosive. Most of the country's Catholic.
There's a great essay on Bale which compares it to the Matrix, and he's kind of handing you the pill. Everything you thought you knew is wrong, and you just follow me down this road.
Or even more even more persuasive. This bunch of things that all annoy you, where they're all connected, man. It's the system, man. It's the Illuminati. One thing, looking at it as theater and as how it would work and how you could stage it on stage. Act 1 with natural law works pretty well because lust and witchcraft are fun theatrical things, and they will resonate with a modern audience. This one is much more about corruption in the church. So not that there is still corruption in places of power now. It is different corruption. It is differently expressed. But the question would be, how do we tap into that in a way an audience would viscerally get? Could that be done? It's hard to know.
And it's fascinating having Moses quoting Paul. I'm always delighted to hear that. There are a couple of moments, till Christ be the Lord, President, going, yeah, Moses was definitely in on this whole narrative. I mean, just again, the language things. I always like when you have an early Acts rather than ask. Which is sort of very much come round again as a word sound. But you talk about getting trapped in repetition of a thing, but the verse changes so much. There's so many different verse structures going on here as well. I mean, he's really bringing the changes. He knows if he's too repetitious, the audience will drift.
I think that's more a modern ear thing, because we're not used to hearing verse drama, and also because navigating this on a cold read, obviously some of the pronunciations have shifted and what have you. So I think that is something that could work in performance, particularly if you use music, whether that's in the form of kind of rap and just the kind of sort of beat underneath it, or whether you actually musicalized it. That I think you would find that's something to me that needs rehearsing, like to find those shifts of rhythm, because on a cold read you do, because you're reading ahead and going, oh god, I've got to hit that right. I think it would be ultimately more engaging with the visual around it and kind of.
And some of the word forms, it's not just those early modern, or it's Suffolk. There seems to be something very East Anglian about the way the word forms and the word choices he's using are sometimes really weird, and they're fascinating because of that. That's great.
It's really nice having that with the sort of the great long biblical names and all those weird recesses of the Achitophel and Absalom and Dom Zedek and all these.
Yes,
people. It's a really
he
nice.
uses those all the time. It's one of the big problems. Do you update it to names people would know today, and then what do you do about the rhyming? It's a massive problem in God's Promises, which is effectively what he writes next, where it's just full of it. That's where he really does do lists. God, does he do lists? Bless his cotton socks. So yeah, we're very much into the close. Seem to have lost Greg. Hopefully he'll come back online again. Stephen, any final thoughts from you about, we're over halfway through. We almost got to the end of the act.
No thoughts. No. I like it. I really enjoyed the performances. I thought Greg's performance was really nice. I think all the performances have been really good, and it has. I did try to read Bale once, and of course, I left with my tail between my legs, and this has really been a very worthwhile exercise, I think.
No, I genuinely really rate, but I mean, I absolutely love his Temptation. It's nice, short. It's a brilliantly put together piece. There are flaws in his other two biblical plays, but they're not insuperable. And we will get round to King John eventually, but that's one that has had a lot of attention. This one has not, and so this is a genuine curiosity for me whether this worked. It reminds me at the moment of a very much like an 80s fight scene. Everybody's going for the laws separately. The laws aren't ganging together and working as a team. I think that's their fundamental. They split up at the beginning. They're going to lose the battle.
It's true, and the vices work in teams and groups.
Yeah. Something Raptor-like about what they're doing.
Superhero movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the laws are overconfident. I mean, that's the thing. I think because they've got God on their side, they're going to win.
Shock ending.
Deus Ex.
Annaliese, any final thoughts from you?
Not really. I've really enjoyed it. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to it and thinking about it. The only thing I wondered about was maybe with Infidelitas and the way the rhythm of the scenes as they've sort of gone along, and the way that Infidelitas gets sort of almost like a soliloquy almost at the end of each sort of section before the next couple of characters come on. There's some stage time there where he sort of plots his next move, and I was just wondering about that, how that works, and how we might interact with the audience there, and what's going on there in those few moments.
Because Infidelitas is a massive part. I mean, it's absolutely huge. And you're right, he's the ringleader, and he gets these. We need Moses and natural law to come back on stage and do a little speech after he does his closing speech, because otherwise the poor bugger would be never off stage but the opening.
Yeah, but no, I've really enjoyed it, so thank you, everybody.
Liza, any final thought? Have I been to you with a final thought?
Really, just really what everyone else said. It's I am, even though Bale and I would probably have an argument which might become a physical fight if I met him, I am quite rating him as a writer.
I don't know if I came to Francis for a final thought, or did I?
Just my initial impression of the first half is it's I've enjoyed it, and it's really vivid, the language, but it's not beautiful. There's nothing in there that it's not like when we were reading Sodomismus last week. There was some really lovely stuff in there. This is too dark, I think, for that. He's not. Also, he's not. I don't know.
All carrot, all stick and no carrot.
Yeah. There isn't a lot of beauty in his language, I think.
Alex, final thought from you?
I agree with Liza. I would probably tag team her on Bale where he's alive. But I do actually quite enjoyed the language of it. I'm quite enjoying the darkness and the sort of, in the way that I sort of enjoy The Wicker Man or something. It's all a bit sort of unpleasant and unsettling, but there's something in it that I like. Yeah, it sort of surprised me because I didn't expect that. And it was interesting, the point about there not being an everyman figure, and I wondered, because I'm now obsessed with this sort of theatre of cruelty thing, is if you actually really went for your audience, like I sort of imagine idolatry kind of, you know, saying, oh, you've got a necklace on like me that's got, you know, the feathers on that you're supposed to have to get rid of, that it's really quite up in their faces, kind of going, it's you're the people we're having a go at. You know, if you're going to have a go at everyone, including your audience. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed the performances as well. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting thought about almost shaming the audience.
Yes. Go Artaud on them, make them.
Yeah.
I do think that's a very elegant solution to the problem of there being no everyman to be corrupted. Is like everyone is every man. I like that, Alex.
Right. Well, we still have about half, a little under the half the play to go, which we will be coming to in 2 days' time. We have a day off to recover. And also for those joining us next time, they'll get a bit of a run up so they can watch the video of this session, which is nice for them. It wasn't planned that way. It's just purely random. I'm not going to quote the particular person who wrote this. I'm not going to quite quote the quote correctly, but there was, I did read something just basically saying that this is the most unperformable, unplayable. It was just everything about it was it was just full of uns. I have this, and I'm not going to say who it was or where it was from, but
when is it from, Rob? I'd just be interested to know that. You know, what sort of era are we talking about? This?
Oh, quite recent. I'm not talking about 19th century people writing about interludes in a sniffy matter. It was quite a recent thing, and I was just going. And I was going, this is a proposition. I wish
within the last 10 years or
something along those lines.
Anyway, okay. I thought it might have been like, you know, the 1930s or something.
No. No, there's there was something very much laid saying, you know, this is you can't do anything with this. And I'm you know, though there are many caveats, I think we've all expressed, this play has life and energy and opinions, whether we like them or not. And on that note, I'd like to thank all the readers, present or not, for their work this evening, and I hope to see you all anon, and goodbye.